What I'm about to say is going to make some people very angry. The hard stuck soy 3K support players who think they get unlucky with their teammates every game. If that describes you, please click away from this video now. This video is not for you, and it's a black pill that you're not ready to take. I'm warning you now that it will offend you. This video is for carry players who want to 1v9 their games no matter how shitty their team is. Shout out to you, Sigmas. Everything that I'm about to say applies to any MMR. And I learned these lessons the hard way, and I'm going to give them to you now so that you can learn from my mistakes instead of continuing to make them for yourself. If you lock in and apply what I'm about to say, you will climb quickly. My MMR journey looked like most success stories, where it's a plateau for a while, and then all of a sudden I gained a lot of MMR in a very short period of time. And that was once I started learning and applying what I'm about to tell you. And I'm going to talk about mental first because it matters a lot, and then I'm going to get into in-game ideas. And just a quick disclaimer, I can only speak for what worked for me. Other things may work for different people, but this worked extremely well for me and also a few of my friends. And I'm pretty confident they'll work for you too, because everybody in all my pubs gets this completely flipped. They get it completely wrong, and not many people climb. So people just have the wrong idea. Before anything else, you have to embody a mindset that I'm going to call demon mode. And demon mode is going into every single game with the mentality that you have to 1v9 it. You can't expect anything from your teammates. You have to pretend that they're actual monkeys and that you need to do everything. Okay, you need to realize that the outcome of the game is entirely your responsibility, and every death matters so much. And even if you die once in a game, you disgustingly griefed it. Okay, as a position 1, every death makes it harder for you to carry. You're the main character. This is the way you need to think if you want to play carry, because you're going to be the one who hits your timing and kills all 5 enemy heroes in the team fight. And if you can't do that in a 2, 3, 4, 5k pub, you did something wrong. Not your team, you did. And demon mode is impactful because it just makes you more careful and smarter about the decisions you make. It makes you make better decisions. Okay, and you will just have more impact thinking that way. It also prevents you from getting complacent, which I see is a huge problem, right? You don't accidentally slip into playing on autopilot and not thinking like so many people do, which is why they plateau. When you're in demon mode, you're preparing to do something hard, and winning in Dota is hard. You can't just coast by, okay? And when people inevitably do play like monkeys and they're just clacking away at their keyboard, you won't react emotionally because you're expecting it. Demon mode is not optional. Welcome to your anime villain arc. Okay, there's a direct correlation between me thinking this way and me winning a lot. Anytime I exit demon mode, I stop winning a lot. You just cannot get complacent. And to enter this state, you need to be trigger happy with the mute button. Okay, mute early and often. Why? Nothing will pull you out of demon mode faster than engaging with your team. This is kind of a black pill, but whether you like it or not, you get affected by how your teammates are communicating because it hijacks your focus. You will think about what they're saying, even if it's only for a few seconds, okay? But in Dota, you need those few seconds to be thinking about the game, the state of the map, what items you need to build, that kind of thing. And the unfortunate reality is that 99.9% of the time, below Immortal, even in Immortal, your team is not saying anything that would benefit you, and it's only distracting you, and you should know all the relevant information, and if you don't, you need to get better. Also, ironically, when you do play well, they will flame you for not coming to their shitty fights, okay? We'll talk more about this later. And the worst thing you do when somebody flames you, which they will do even if you play well, is respond, because that keeps them engaging with you and taunting you, and you'll both be typing and screaming at each other and not playing the damn vidya. Okay, and you need to just mute them right away to prevent all of this, because if you don't have them muted, it's just human nature to respond sometimes. It's like, why I can't keep a lot of sweets in my house, because if I do, I'll just like binge them. It's just kind of the way that I'm wired. It's like your environment determines your behavior. Okay, that's why. And I'm not saying mute everybody. What I'm saying is mute early and often. Okay, if you have to think about if you should mute somebody, you should. Here's some examples of when I mute people. If they suggest a pick during the draft, if they backseat me in any way, if they say anything remotely negative, or if they say anything unrelated to winning the game. Okay, and obviously if they say something really egregious or like flame people, if they flame anybody in any way. But these are only some examples. There are a lot more scenarios where I mute people. To win ranked games and truly be in demon mode, you need to give 100% of your attention. You don't even have 1% to spare on these animals, okay? And that goes both ways. You can distract your team by bad communication, so I do only communicate extremely relevant things like, oh, you went to Rosh, or when you TP away from a fight, things like that. Okay, we have the mental side down. Now, it's really important that you get good at demon mode. By the way, it's like kind of a muscle you need to train because it's just so tempting to do things like interact with your team or like blame your team. But once you get good at that, now we can move on to the actual gameplay. And the first idea is that you need to limit your hero pool, okay? I gained all my MMR by only having a pool of 3 heroes, and I would recommend 3 heroes max, okay? No more than 3, and I would change my pool of heroes based on the patch. Having meta heroes helps in the pool, but it's not mandatory, okay? You can climb to immortal on basically any hero if you're good at it. And the idea here is to get extremely comfortable on those 2 to 3, 1 to 3, maybe not 1 because it can get banned, but 1 to 3 heroes, so that you don't have to think about any of the spell casting and you can only think about the game of Dota. And after I had my 3 heroes to pick from, I would come up with formulas for all of them, or a script is another way of putting it. Okay, wait, think movie script, not hack pack. And anyway, the formula is something you can replicate every single game, okay? And you're going to refine this script the more we play the heroes. And this is why we limit our hero pools. And a big part of this formula that I'm talking about is a timing for the hero. And the way that you have to think is, if you're going to 1v9 the game, you have to make decisions that are best for your game to hit your timings, not your team's game, your game, okay? And this is going to involve not showing up to a lot of team fights early if you're not sure that you're going to get at least 2 kills, a big core kill, or a big objective over it. An example of a good fight to show up to is if it's near the enemy's safe lane tower, so you can take it so you get more space for yourself, or if it's near the enemy's mid tower. But again, you have to be sure that it's going to accelerate you to your timings. Here's an example of a formula that I've had a lot of success with. This was a few patches ago. This was actually about a year ago. This was a while ago, but I'd play a lot of Alchemist, okay? And I would play for my timing only, and then I would end the game on it, which means I'd get to my timing, and then I would take Roshan and I would siege buildings, okay? And at the time, it was something like Battle Fury, SNY, BKB, AC, Blink, and I would get there as fast as possible, and I would get so good at just getting there so fast and hit insane timings, and the enemies would just not be ready for it, and I would do everything in my power to hit my timings. Again, it's kind of flexible though. Sometimes that involves showing up to fights, sometimes it doesn't, but you just have to make decisions with that framework of, does this accelerate my formula? And also the items will change a little bit based on the game, but that's like generally the skeleton will be like somewhat like the first few items will be the same, but you do have to change it on a game to game basis, which is why it's not free. You still have to like use your brain. Or another example of a formula that I gained a lot of MMR with was PL. Okay, back when the Ags and the Shard wasn't a thing, it was just Diffusal, Manta, and then Heart or Scotty, and I would get those 3 items as fast as possible, okay? I wouldn't care my team. Again, I would only show up if it accelerated my timings, if it accelerated my formula. So I would just rush that, and I would pick it in good PL games, and I would know that if I hit that timing in a good PL game, I would be able to kill the entire enemy team pretty much by myself. Another formula, and this one's a little bit more complicated, and this is why the hero you pick matters, because their formula will change. And if you're unsure of what your formula should be on a hero, you can do a few things. You can watch a pro replay and see like when they fight or when they're the strongest, or you can send me a DM here on Twitter. You can add me on Steam. You have my username, but I'm happy to chat. But anyway, the Ursa formula was a little bit more complicated because it involved winning my lane, getting a pretty fast blink, getting pickoffs with the blink, Roshing, getting a basher with my Aegis so I didn't have to buy a defensive item, and then just killing anybody on the map with the Aegis and snowballing it from there, okay? You can see how that formula is a little bit more complicated than like Peel by Diffusal Manta Heart. That's why I typically like to play the hard carries, because their formula is a little bit more straightforward. But I like Ursa because he also scales pretty well into the late game. And your formula isn't going to work in every game, but that's just what you're trying to do. You have a plan. Okay, and the formula doesn't need to be perfect, okay? By no means is this like pro level, but it doesn't need to be to get immortal. You just need to have some sort of plan, all right? And in order to win with the formula, you have to stay disciplined, okay? Every single one of your decisions has to be aligned with accelerating your formula. And again, every death matters so much because it means you hit your timing slower and the enemy will be stronger when you hit it. Okay, so join me in demon mode, pick a few heroes, pick a few formulas, and lock in. Okay, your team won't know your formula, they won't know your timings, they won't know anything. It's all you, and you can carry the games. And again, if you're not carrying games in 2, 3, 4, 5K, it's your fault. It's not your team's. If you enjoyed this video, like and subscribe. Peace.